Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to Farm Smart. I'm Mrs. Collins, and we are so glad to have everyone joining us today. The reason we are celebrating Read with the Farmer is we're also celebrating Read a Book Day, which actually happened back in September, but everything was going virtual then and we didn't quite have it ready. But we are celebrating Read a Book Day, but we take a twist on it here at Farm Smart by saying Read with the Farmer, because agriculture is so important here in our Imperial Valley. And there's so many ways that agriculture is different. You know, a lot of people, we read a lot of books about old McDonald's farm, and there's nothing really wrong with old McDonald's farm, but modern agriculture is very different, and every farm is different. And so we think it's really important to read a book that's very accurate about agriculture and tells us a story about where our food comes from and who grows that food. We're reading a very fun book called Right This Very Minute that tells about where our food comes from. We have a young farmer that's going to be reading for us today. I'm going to let Mr. J.P. Labrucherie tell a little bit about himself and his family and about what he farms. And so with that, I'm going to like to introduce Mr. J.P. Labrucherie.
Hello, everyone. My name is J.P. Labrucherie. I'm a fourth generation farmer in the Imperial Valley. We've been in the Imperial Valley for about 108 years, which is amazing. My great-grandfather came from France back in the early 1900s. We now farm a lot of vegetables, specifically organic vegetables. And I had the great opportunity of going to college before I came back to the farm, and I studied accounting and law, and I still get to use those skills today on the farm. And I'm so excited to read this book. I actually had a chance to scan it last night, and it has a lot of great values and stories in it and purpose. And I'm looking forward to reading it to all you children. The title of the book is Right This Very Minute, a Table to Farm book about food and farming. What's that you say? You're hungry for breakfast? Right this very minute? Then you need a farmer. You have the stories of so many right here on your table. Right this very minute in a citrus grove, a grower tests oranges for ripeness. When the fruit is ready, the harvesting crew will pick the oranges, which will be squeezed into the juice you drink in the morning. Right this very minute in a new field on a wheat farm, a farmer drills furrows the perfect depth for seeds. Your pancakes were made with wheat that was grown, harvested, and then ground into flour. And children, for your information, we do that in December and January ourselves in El Centro. We do not do this in El Centro in the snow. Right this very minute, in a sugar bush filled with maple trees, a sugar maker replaces old collection buckets with a new tubing system to carry maple sap to a storage tank. The sap will be boiled down in evaporators until it becomes thick and sweet, like the maple syrup you've poured on your pancakes. What's that you say? You'd like a snack? Right this very minute? Then you need a farmer. You have the knowledge of so many right here in your hands. Right this very minute, as the sun sets on a cranberry marsh, a grower starts protecting the crop from frost. The grower will be up all night checking the sprinklers that keep the plants from freezing. Also, cranberries can become part of your trail mix. Right this very minute, on a southern farm, a peanut farmer installs soil sensors to make sure the fields aren't too wet or too dry. We use those on our farms, children. The sensors help the farmers decide when and how much to water these sensitive plants. What's that you say? It's time for lunch? Right this very minute? Then you need a farmer. You have the hard work of so many right here in your lunchbox. Right this very minute, a dairy farmer tends the cows. The cheese in your sandwich was made with milk from cows that must be milked at least twice every day, whether it's a weekday, a Saturday, a birthday, or a holiday. Right this very minute, farmers till and test the soil for nutrients to make sure it's healthy before planting seeds that will grow into long, crunchy carrots. And children, that goes on a lot here in our Imperial Valley. Right this very minute, an apple grower works with a beekeeper to bring beehives into an orchard. Hundreds of thousands of honeybees will pollinate the pale pink blossoms, helping each tree grow many bushels of apples for you to enjoy. What's that, you say? You're ready for dinner? Right this very minute? Then you need a farmer. You have the pride of so many right there on your plate. Right this very minute, a cattle rancher moves the herd to a wide pasture to graze. She cares for the cows and welcomes their calves into the world. When the calves are old enough, they will move to new pastures or feed yards before they are harvested for the beef that will be made into hamburgers. Right this very minute, a farmer plans a crop rotation schedule to keep the soil healthy and grow more of the very best vegetables like the potato you've topped with the broccoli and cheese. Right this very minute, some farmers prepare produce for delivery to grocery stores and others box it up to sell at local farmers markets. Kids, when you're driving around the Imperial Valley, you'll see a lot of this going on between now and March. A lot of this in the Imperial Valley. That's a lot of what we do. Before lettuce and tomatoes ever get tossed in a salad or put on top of a hamburger, they must travel from the farm to hungry customers. Right this very minute, a grower checks the weather forecast in a family-owned strawberry patch while workers help hundreds of visitors pick their own strawberries. Right this very minute, a family checks their backyard coop to make sure the chickens have enough food and fresh water. Then they collect eggs that get made into foods like the shortcake in your bowl. What's that, you say? You want to grow your own food? Right this very minute, then you need to think like a farmer. You can help plant a garden right here in your community. Right this very minute, you and your friends, family, and neighbors can work together to choose which crops to grow in your gardens. In a few months, you will enjoy healthy snacks and meals made with the fruits and vegetables you harvest yourselves. Every single day of every year, farmers tend their crops, care for their animals, and work hard to feed their families and yours. Next time you eat your breakfast, snack, lunch, dinner, or dessert, remember that somewhere, right this very minute, there's a farmer to thank for your delicious food. And if someday you decide to become a farmer, which you all can if you work hard at it, right there, right that very minute, you'll be doing your part to feed the world too. The end.
Big round of applause. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Very much. So I was thinking as you were reading that right this very minute, so much is happening right here in Imperial Valley, getting ready for our big winter harvest.
That is
And
correct.
I just want to remind the boys and girls that, you know, Mr. Labrucherie is not someone who's far away from us. This is what is happening right here in our neighborhoods, right here in Imperial Valley. We're not talking to someone who's far away. So we're going to open it up for some questions. A lot of students have come down in the chat. And I have some of my own if they don't have any, but I'm sure that third graders have a lot of questions. Can one of my panelists maybe pop in with a question that they see? I know one of them was, what is the most type of food that you produce or that you sell?
So I would say our biggest product is spinach. I know a lot of children don't really like spinach, but as you get older, you'll like it even more. It's great for salads. It's great for cooking. It's very healthy, lots of nutrients, and we grow millions of pounds of spinach that go all over the United States and into Canada between starting now and all the way to March. And just so you children know, 90% of the vegetables that are grown in the United States in the winter months are grown at home in the Imperial Valley where you're living and in Yuma next to us. And I think that's pretty amazing.
That is great. I know my children went to school on the East Coast, and they were always on the lookout for Imperial Valley produce during the wintertime. Someone else is asking you, Mr. Labrucherie, what is your favorite thing to grow?
I think my favorite thing to grow is iceberg lettuce. And if you kids know what iceberg lettuce is, it's that lettuce that's like a bowl, a big head of lettuce. You see it chopped sometimes into sliced wedges. It's in a lot of salads. That is the most challenging crop by far to grow as far as vegetables go. It starts as a little baby with a few little leaves, and you have to have the perfect amount of nutrients, sun, and water to form that big head. It's almost a science to do it. And we have lots of trials and tribulations with it, a lot of challenges, but that's something we're really good at. And that's something that's really fun to grow because it's so challenging.
What do you think is the most important thing that people should know about their food when they go to purchase it?
I think what they need to know about their food is how hard it is to make it. For example, we start planning for vegetables in the late May, early June of the previous year, getting the ground ready, tilling the soil, making sure there's enough nutrients in it, planting the right seeds, watering it correctly, the challenges of weather. Sometimes weather could ruin your crop. Sometimes weather can alter your crop. And you go to all this work, and at the very end, you get to harvest it and send it to a place that ends up on someone's table. And I wish that everyone knew how much work went into that and how troublesome that was, but it's so great to do it. And I wish everyone knew that. And you kids get to know that since you're here today.
Someone's asking, what is the easiest thing to plant?
Nothing's easy in life, as you know, children. But I would think the easiest thing that we grow as far as veggies would probably be kale. I don't know if you've ever had kale. It's supposed to be very healthy, and it is. I'm not a big fan of it, to be honest with you. It tastes kind of crunchy and sour, but people love kale. But it's a very hardy vegetable that can weather storms, it can weather heat, it can weather a lot of things, and it seems to just grow no matter what.
Now, someone was asking actually what iceberg lettuce is. And so a lot of people don't know about different varieties. I happen to have a fake one here.
Nice.
Just happen to have it on hand.
Cool.
So boys and girls, this is the kind of that the fish was talking about. It called an iceberg lettuce in the round head. There's lots of different varieties of lettuce, but this one is the one he was talking about, the iceberg. It has the core at the bottom here.
It almost looks like cabbage, but it's not. It's actually lettuce, and it's lighter color than cabbage, but it's shaped like a head of cabbage. And it's the most prominent lettuce you'll see in salads.
Okay, what is your favorite vegetable, they're asking?
I love spinach. I think spinach is great. If you kids haven't tried it, you should try spinach. I love spinach salads. I love cooked spinach. Anything with spinach in it, I love it.
Hi, well, my name's Madison, and I could also ask a few questions. Thank you so much for being here today, Mr. Labrucherie.
Of course.
So other questions we have, do we use dirt or dry soil to plant the crops?
Well, we start with summer, it's dry dirt. We water it down, and some of the weeds come up, and we disc those weeds in, knock them down. And then we wait till the soil is kind of a nice form. And then we make those beds. If kids, you ever drive by, you'll see the lettuce, it's on these beds, and then there's a furrow and a bed and a furrow, and the lettuce is on top of the bed. So it's somewhat moist when we make that bed. And then when we actually plant it, it's pretty dry. It's very little, if any, moisture. And then we put sprinklers in. I don't know if you ever noticed all those sprinklers and the water and the mist going on, and we sprinkle the seeds, and they get wet, and then they sprout, and they dig their roots down, and they start their first leaves, and that's how we get it going.
Great. And we heard what your favorite vegetable is. Someone's asking what your least favorite vegetable is, actually.
I mentioned kale before. I also don't care for turnips. I don't know if you've ever had turnips. They're pretty sour. I like all vegetables, but there's some that are harder to eat, and turnips is one of them.
Now we've been asked a couple of times, what is your favorite farm animal?
Oh, pigs. I had 8 4-H pigs growing up. I encourage any kids who have the opportunity to get into 4-H. I raised 8 pigs 8 years in a row. Pigs are extremely intelligent. They're about as smart as a dog. I was even able to teach one of my pigs to sit by kneeling down. It couldn't sit from its hind legs, but I could teach it to sit in its front legs. and they're really bright, and they've got personalities, and they're fun to have.
What is the easiest part of your job or your favorite part of your job?
My favorite part of my job is when you bring someone under younger than you, and you teach them something, and then they go do it even better than you. That's what's really cool. I was introduced as young. I'm 43 years old. I don't think I'm young anymore, but what's great is seeing younger people pick up the ball and run with it and do an even better job.
So do you think it's a good idea for kids to go to college if they want to learn about farming?
Absolutely. So children, we are in desperate need of more farmers. We're in desperate need of more entomologists. That is basically like a plant doctor. We're in desperate need of all areas of farming in the Imperial Valley. We have a major labor shortage, from people working in the fields all the way up to the upper management of running the whole farm. Get good grades, go to college, study. You can start at IVC if you want, or you can go to your four-year university straight. And there's great opportunities to study agriculture, whether it be in the Cal Poly system or outside of there. Get your degree and come back to the Imperial Valley. We need you. You will have a fantastic opportunity, I promise.
We have a couple people asking how many days you work and how many hours a day you work as a farmer.
So I'm older now, but when I first got started, it was literally 70, 80 hours a week, Monday to Sunday. I had learned as a high schooler how to drive all the tractors and irrigate, and some of the hands-on skills, but the management side of it and really understanding how the business worked, I did not know yet. And it took me about 10 years to work through that and really get good at it to understand it. Now I'm probably a 50-hour-a-week guy, five days a week. But I love what I do. I don't even feel like it's work. When I start my day, all of a sudden it's lunchtime, and I don't even realize the day's even started. It's a lot of fun. It's very challenging. Like anything in life, it's challenging, but it's very rewarding. And so I really don't even see it as work.
And can you tell us why it is that you love your job and what made you want to be a farmer to begin with?
Well, I was born into it, I'll admit, but through 4-H, I really started to love animals. I loved vegetables. It's so amazing, kids, to see something start with just raw dirt, and then literally 90 days later, there's 2 million heads of romaine in this field that you just worked on. And I don't know if there's anything as rewarding as that in a job you can get, where you can make so much food so fast. And it's just really neat to see, especially as I said earlier, children, you've got 90% of the veggies grown in the United States grown right here in El Centro, Holtville, Brawley, Sealy, all the areas in the Imperial Valley, and Yuma next to us. We're growing 90% of those vegetables that are grown in the United States that are harvested between November and March. To be part of such a big industry is just fascinating. To think that we're feeding 350, 400 million people, including Canada, with vegetables.
Now, quite a bit of students are asking about the type of fruits you grow. Do you grow any fruits?
So it's hot in the Imperial Valley, as you know, in the summer. And so we don't grow any fruit because it just gets too hot. But there is some grapefruit, lemons, and oranges up in the northern end of the valley. But we don't farm up there. So there is some fruit, but down where we are, not too much fruit.
I think it's great they asked that question, because a lot of people don't know the difference between a fruit and a vegetable. One of the things we teach here at Farm Smart. So if anyone who wants to answer that question about what's the difference between a fruit and a vegetable, hopefully you learned that at Farm Smart. We had some answers to our difference between fruits and vegetables question. And several students had answered the seed. That fruits have seeds on the inside, and vegetables produce their seed on the outside of the plant. Very good.
Yeah.
A lot of the students want to know what different crops are grown here in the Imperial Valley.
Sure. So I'll focus on vegetables, but before I do, though, we also have alfalfa, we have klein grass, we have Bermuda grass, a lot of grasses that cows eat, horses eat. But I focus on the vegetable side of it. And I mean, we grow about 14 vegetables, ranging from iceberg lettuce, romaine lettuce, kale, chard, mizuna, arugula, carrots, onions. There's cilantro. I mean, anything you see in the grocery store that's short and green, I'm pretty sure it can be grown in the Imperial Valley. I'm one of many farmers in the Imperial Valley. There's probably about 30 of us that focus on vegetables, and I'm just one of them. And these vegetables are grown all over the Imperial Valley, from Westmoreland, Raleigh, Calapat, Holtville, El Centro, Sealy. If there's any towns I'm missing, Heber, we grow these vegetables all over. We predominantly focus on the southern end of the Imperial Valley, but we have stuff up north as well. And so there's a myriad of vegetables being grown. And the same thing in Yuma. Yuma's got about the same amount of vegetables we're growing. Yeah, and so we have some crops that are fruits, but mainly what we grow is vegetables that we're eating the whole thing, right? You see more of the fruit up in the north end.
Another question we have coming in is, which plant is the least consistent in their harvesting and their production, which comes out usually wrong?
Iceberg's tough. You'll drive by and see an iceberg field and it looks amazing, but that is so difficult to do. But I would say iceberg is the most challenging. But what happens with rain, you have to think about is when it's just a seedling or you just planted it, all of a sudden all this rain comes down, it'll destroy the crop. It'll smash the leaves under the ground, or the seed will just get splattered everywhere or get buried too much. And so I know I'm slightly changing the subject, but what's really challenging is when you get rain on young crops, it really can destroy them. So can hail. I hope you guys know what hail is. That's when those big rocks of ice come down. And sometimes we have these hailstorms. You'll have this beautiful field of spinach, for example, and a hailstorm will come and cut and chop all the leaves up, and we can't even use it. We can't even harvest it.
Some students are wondering when you started working.
So I got back, well, I started when I was 13. I don't even know if that's legal anymore. I started when I was 13 on the farm working in the shop. And then I started driving tractors after that and irrigating in the summers. And then we had year-round school back in the 90s at Central Union High School. And so I had this really modified schedule. I'd have an October off and I would go rake hay and help plant vegetables. But then we got away from that and I got back just to the summers where I'd rake and bale a lot of hay and drive those big tractors that pull those discs that move the dirt around. And then I went to college for 4 years and I studied accounting. That took 4 years. And then I went to law school for 3 years. So that was another 3 years. And after that, I worked as an accountant and an attorney for a year or two. So I came back about when I was 26 as an adult, really, to work on the farm.
Some students are wondering if there are any animals that get into the fields and eat the vegetables.
So that is a big problem. We have natural animals like coyotes. We can get rabbits from the river bottoms, and we have to be extremely careful because they go to the bathroom out there, and that can cause the plants to get sick and get us sick. So we have to be very careful. We put up fences if we know there's animals. If we ever see any droppings that an animal's been there, we have to make a 6-foot circle around it and not harvest there. Another thing you'll see in the Imperial Valley is a lot of sheep, and they'll move those sheep sometimes along our produce fields on the roads. And that's not good if some of that dust gets into our fields. So we have to work with the sheep herders to make sure they try to stay away from our fields.
Some students were wanting to know how many different types of machinery is needed to be used to get a crop growing for harvesting.
That's an excellent question. I don't have it memorized, but I'd say there's probably 10 to 15 different steps creating vegetables. We disc it, we subsoil it, we triplane it. Triplaning it levels the ground off. We redisc it, and then we list it, which means makes those rows that you saw in that picture. Then we mulch the bed up into a nice bed that you can plant the seed on top of. We have these special planters that go and put the seeds in for us. A human doesn't have to do it. We have tractors that go in and take the weeds out. You'll grow vegetables on a single line on a bed, but weeds will start growing around it. So we have these little knives that we pull behind a tractor that'll cut those weeds out and cut the weeds out in the furrow below. And then today we have a lot of harvesting equipment that's tractor driven as well. So I'd say 10 to 15 different devices are used per crop.
Computer? How about computers?
So computers are embedded in all of our tractors these days. The newer tractors have computers that help run them. And we use GPS, global positioning system, where the tractor will actually kind of like an autopilot in a plane. We can tell the tractor once it gets going to say go and stay straight, and the tractor will automatically go the speed it wants to go, the force it needs to go, and go really straight and stay in line with the previous pass so that it looks nice and uniform as you move along. We also have computers that have optical eyes that when we're harvesting spinach, for example, if there's a yellow piece or a piece of dirt, air will shoot down real quick and push that out of the way so it doesn't end up in the bin that we send to the factory where they process the spinach. Those are some examples of computers.
We're getting a lot of questions about animals. Would you mind answering some of those?
Sure.
So we're getting asked, what is your favorite thing to do with farm animals, and which is your least favorite farm animal?
So I said earlier, I loved pigs, raising for 4-H. I also used to ride horses. If you children ever have the opportunity to do that, it's an opportunity of a lifetime. I loved riding horses. I got to do it in, I think, 4th grade, 5th grade. But go back 100 years, go back to when my great-grandfather first came here. They used mules and horses to do a lot of this work. There was no tractors. There was implements behind the mules or behind the tractors, but there really weren't very many tractors in the beginning. So I guess my favorite animal would be the horse, because they're so much fun to ride, and they're such beautiful animals, and they like people when they're in good moods.
And some students have questions about cows. They're wondering if cows eat a lot and how they make milk. I know this might not be your area of expertise, but they're very curious.
My family's in the cattle business too. We're not in the dairy business or calf raising business, but cows, at least in the Imperial Valley, they're mainly what we call steers. They're males, they're not females. And they eat a lot of corn, a lot of grasses, some molasses, and they're mainly down here for beef. And there's 1 or 2 dairies down here, but not too many. And the way we have milk is the mama calf will have babies, and that mommy makes milk for the babies. Well, they get the babies away from the milk and start feeding them regular food. The mommy's still making the milk, so we go and get that milk, and that's how we get to drink our milk and eat cheese and ice cream and all those great things that we get from dairy products.
I just want to put a plug in that California is the #1 dairy state. We produce more dairy than any other state in the whole United States.
That's right.
And all those bull calves coming off the California dairies come to Imperial Valley as steers for beef.
That's
and
right.
The last 2 Fridays, 2 weeks ago, we did a feedlot field trip. And last Friday, we were live at Schaffner Dairy for a field trip. So those are recorded and on our website. So any of you students out there can go on and see right here in Imperial Valley a live feedlot and live dairy. And those answer a lot of your dairy questions.
Let me add to that. All the alfalfa, all the green fields you see that have hay in them, those are all going to dairies, mainly dairies, to feed those cows to make that milk. All Imperial Valley has hundreds of thousands of acres of hay. And if we didn't have that dairy industry, hay wouldn't go anywhere.
And that's a great history lesson, teachers, about how alfalfa was sort of produced in the West as travelers came this way, of the livestock they brought, and the need to feed that livestock. So check out California Ag in the Classroom lessons online, and they have history lessons that talk about the development of California and that alfalfa industry. And also just want to put a plug in for our Farm Smart program that's called Alfalfa Ice Cream in the Making, because without that alfalfa, we would not have ice cream. Madison, right. I think we have time for maybe one more question.
Someone is asking, do all vegetables have seeds?
Yes, there's some transplants, but they originally come from seed. Yeah, you have to have seed to make a vegetable. There's like date trees, you can take the shoots off the side, they call them pups, and then replant them and make another tree, but we don't see anything like that in vegetables. You'll see transplants that you think maybe where they come from, they came from a seed, where you're planting a little plant in already because you don't want it to have to deal with all that weather, but they all come from seed.
And there are some farmers that just harvest seed for another grower to grow that vegetable.
That's right.
We're gonna wrap up with that. Mr. Labrucherie, thank you so much. Our first event of the year. We appreciate everything you do and your farm and everything you do for our community and to make our food. and to make our food safe. So thank you for joining us today.
Hope you
Thanks,
enjoyed it.
everybody.
Good luck, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.